your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Here comes the jam. Getting down with the truth. The only way he knows how to. Girls all up with his name. We call him the chief. You're damn right. He's gonna get that sucker. Yo, we track down the truth. You know what a track down the truth. You know and what do they call him? We call him the chief. You're damn right we do.
I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. Hey, this is Morning Coffee with the Chief, and we're going to review the movie Seven today, but it's really a dark movie. But hey, you can catch this show every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the YouTube, on Pop Culture Minefield's YouTube channel, their Rumble channel, and their Facebook page. Now you can catch this these shows, or the recorded version of the show, by just going to Pop Culture Minefield's channel on YouTube, and you can watch all the old versions of the show. You can watch some of the other shows by the other content providers on this channel. But do me a favor, if you're going to watch us on YouTube, subscribe. And if you're following us, or you're going to watch us on Rumble, I think you follow us there to help build up our audience so that we move to the top of the list as the algorithms for both those channels decide who the audience ought to watch. So hey, today I'm gonna do like I said, the movie Seven, and it's a pretty dark movie. I've been reluctant to do this, but when I search to decide what movies I want to do, I always what are the best movies, best 100 cop movies out there, best 100 crime movies out there, and I've actually done most of those that come out on those lists, but this has always kind of been on the list, or it makes many of those lists, and I was reluctant to do it just because it's such dark themes, but we got a couple guests. It'll be interesting getting into this show, but before we do, I got to talk about the Los Angeles mission. Now, the Los Angeles mission is going through some changes down there. They had some financial challenges recently. They've turned a corner, and they're doing well, and they're engaging in some partnerships with Hope of the Valley, which has about 2,500 beds, as well as the Los Angeles mission, which has a smaller number of beds. But the difference between the two agencies is one basically does housing for the homeless, immediate needs, and the LA mission does some of that, but it does wraparound services. Now, the wraparound services to heal people and get them reintegrated back in society, but the wraparound services it's actually quite expensive. It's intensive, but it has a high success rate for those who stay with the program. And of course, they make the sign of the cross there at the Los Angeles mission, and so they don't get any government money. So go to losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. $25, $50, $100. Anything helps. Now, and we're midway through the summertime, and they're starting their push to raise money for some of their big events, and their big events are Thanksgiving and Christmas. They try to make sure that the people who are living on Skid Row, because they're based right down there in Skid Row, get a turkey meal and get a meal for Christmas, that they're not forgotten, that somebody cares. And these programs, they bring people in, and the LA mission's able to find those who are ready to make real change, and then they move them into their more intensive programming. So they're really good. Plus, they also are good fundraisers, because all the politicians come down and they want to serve meals and want to get their picture taken, and all the Instagram folks come down and take pictures of the movie star. The last time I worked the Thanksgiving, I didn't know who the people were. I had to start looking them up, because I'm not, I do this show and I like the movies, but I don't always know who's the reality stars. I don't always know who's who's on TV shows. I don't really know all that stuff, and particularly that are appealing to younger folks. And so I had to look them up. But yeah, there are a lot of stars out there. Some of them are like the Instagram stars, which I don't really understand that yet myself. But hey, so help out the Los Angeles Mission. Go to losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. Okay, so let's get back to our movie Seven, and I let's bring up our guest first, and I'll go. They're both sergeants, so I can't go in rank order. I guess I'll go by age over beauty. So we'll bring on Danny Coon here, and hey, Danny, how you doing?
Morning, Pat. How you doing, Chief? It's a good
welcome, welcome to the show again.
Age over beauty. I got you. Okay.
And we'll bring up so Danny's a retired sergeant for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Been on a long time, and every time I do a serial killer movie, I always bring him on. So I think he's getting a phobia there. He's starting to go to therapy because he's the guy that I bring on all the time.
Yeah,
and
mental illness or serial killers. One of the
no,
two.
did your wife watch this one with you too?
Oh yeah, she said you're sick.
I'm sick. No. This you have to explain to her. Hey, do the Google yourself. Best cop movies, and this one comes up. And in fact, they preserve this. They you know how the Library of Congress will identify movies and they'll preserve. They did this. I'm like, why? I had a hard time picking this one just because it's so. There's no humanity in this. It's just bad, right? And it just it's cringeworthy almost. All right, let's bring on our second guest, and this is Eric Fox. Eric Fox is a retired sergeant for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department as well. And Eric has a neat little hobby where he runs around and he takes pictures of live action events, fires, and other types of things. Are you still doing that, Eric? Are you there, Eric?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Sorry about that.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What's the name of the channel?
Fox First on Scene Photography on YouTube and on Instagram and Facebook. So
okay,
it's one of those things that before I retired, my wife says you need to get yourself a hobby because you're not going to get them. You're not going to mess up my mojo. So I've been doing photography for quite a while, and I really got into it after I retired.
Okay, you can see scrolling on the bottom is Eric Fox's YouTube channel, On Scene Photography, and there it is, and it's at TOH2002, I guess. So it's YouTube, and then that, and you can get there, and you can look. And what's the latest stuff that you have on there? You have stuff from Eaton and Palisades Fire?
Yeah, believe it or not, I missed the start of the fires because I was in Boise buying a home. But the latest is I spent a day with the search and rescue teams from LA County as they did a countywide training day. So I documented their activities there. But usually Fridays and Saturdays, I'll go out and see what I can pick up, whether a large fire or go up to Angeles Crest Highway with search and rescue teams and document their patrol activities up there.
Yeah, and they go out there. I used to oversee the Montrose team for like 3 years, and I really enjoyed it. But I knew I was going to go back to chasing crooks. So, but I did the best I could in managing it and moving the team forward. As some of the folks, they remember me because I read the fire department's budget because they were trying to take over some of the search parts of the or the rescue part. They didn't want the search part.
Right.
And I took the time to read their budget, and I said, well, all these urban search and rescue teams are paid for by the taxpayers in LA County, and none of them live in the mountains. So since you guys are operating in the mountains, or since we're operating in the mountains, the sheriff's department is, and this is if you think it's okay to operate the resource, and we already have it there, so why don't you just fund Air 5 for us? Well, they didn't like that. They didn't like that, because I pointed out this is what the law says. We're the ones doing it. It's our jurisdiction. The special district money doesn't say it just goes to the fire department. It just says for capacity, right? And oh boy, then what else did I do? I go, oh, okay. So we have these patrols up there, and they're there on the weekends, and they're closer to the events when they happen, and we need to have a fire CAD in each one of these trucks. And boy, did they!
I don't know if I'm frozen or you guys.
I think you're freezing on us there a little bit. So, but I asked
Is
for
that
fire
me
cats,
freezing or
and
you guys?
I think
That's
that's
weird.
you. Because there's both of us are. Danny's not having a
Uh,
problem. I'm not having a problem. So it must be you. Are you in
John,
You know what?
Idaho?
Let
Or,
me. No,
why
no.
don't you, why-
I'm. Believe it or not, I'm in California. Let me see if I can switch rooms. I wonder if that'll.
Okay.
Uh,
Well,
work.
we'll roll the first scene while you're making your adjustments, or let me at least announce the film as you make your adjustments here. So, the movie Seven uh, was released in 1995. It's a crime thriller film directed by David Fincher and was written by Andrew Kevin Walker, and it stars Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. And they ended up being a good team in this. I enjoyed their interactions. And then, unfortunately, one of the victims in this is Gwyneth Paltrow stars as Brad Pitt's wife, and she's absolutely beautiful in this. And she puts on the whole sweet role, and she's the sweet lady, and you just can't stand the fact that she ends up being a victim in the end of this thing. But it's
right.
really a dark film. And like I said, I watched it once before, and I chose not to do this for a long time just because it's a dark film. It also has Richard Roundtree in there. You remember Richard Roundtree? I think he was the original Shaft, right? In this movie. And then Kevin Spacey, he's introduced later in the movie. And it was interesting. They didn't put Kevin Spacey on the announcements, the credits that this, or originally announced that he was part of the film, because he wanted to surprise. He wanted to build the surprise. Now, he's killing all these people. They don't know who he is, and they don't know who the actor is going to be either, because Kevin Spacey said, "Yeah, don't do that, don't." But what'd you think of the film overall, Danny?
I liked it. It was like you said, it was dark. At first, it was kind of hard catching on, but once you got into it, then it was easy to understand, and it kind of ended wildly. But I came off with one thing. No wonder everybody in that city was so depressed and sad and wanted to go out and kill everybody. It's because it was raining all the time.
They filmed it in L.A. They filmed it in L.A.
Yeah, they must have picked one rainy day.
Well, they didn't plan on the rain. It was really interesting. They didn't plan on the rain, and then all the rain come, and they just said, "Oh, we're plowing through. We're filming." Yeah. And then it gave it this kind of bleak. They talked about that. It gave it this kind of bleak look, which helped to make the movie, right? But
yeah, that was actually kind of the cool part of the movie. Was it kind of darkened the theme a little bit, just by the depressing rain and darkness and overcast and everything. It was a way different.
Yeah, I think we got Slasher Fred, which is kind of a perfect name for this movie. What makes John Doe such a villain is that he is much of the mystery, and we don't really see what he looks like until the very end. Yeah, I agree with that. Who is this guy that's willing to do this? What'd you think of the movie overall, Eric?
Like Danny said, and like I told you backstage, you really seem to really pick the dark ones for sure. And at first I didn't know where it was going. I thought Brad Pitt's character was like, the young kid coming in to make a name for himself. Saying, I've been in homicide for 5 years. I know what I'm doing. And the salty old lieutenant's telling him, take a pill, just be quiet and watch me work, and then we'll figure it out. So. But it's like Danny said, I think it started a little bit slow, but then it picked up momentum, and towards the end, it was interesting movie, to say the least.
Yeah, it's pretty dark, and then there's obviously religious themes in this. But hey, let's roll with the first clip, and I just label it Morgan Freeman, because you kind of see him, and he's an interesting character because he plays kind of this intellectual detective, and we've seen that in a lot of movies. Like we've seen it with Law and Order with the one guy, I forget his name now, DeFario. He plays kind of this intellectual, and even Peter Falk when he plays Columbo, kind of this intellectually superior. Although Columbo kind of plays himself down, but he's pretty smart. But just that he has almost like Morgan Freeman has a unique look at things, and that's what helps him solve the crimes. That's what comes out initially, that he he's different than the other homicide guys because he kind of marches to the beat of a different drum, right? I don't know, but I do like Morgan Freeman as an actor. I think he did a great job in this movie, playing kind of the paternalistic detective once he decides to stick around to help solve this crime, because he's retiring in just a week, and he decides to stick around and help Brad Pitt solve this crime. But Danny, what do you think of Morgan Freeman in the movie?
First of all, when we talk about Morgan Freeman and his detective work, we got to put the hat on.
Oh, there we go.
You got to have the hat, because that made it. That was Morgan Freeman. He played a great old detective that was getting ready to retire, and he's just being a little anal about everything he does. It was quite interesting. And your comparison to like Columbo, that was right on, or Vincent in Special Victim, not Special. He was in Criminal Intent, but yeah, just kind of a little bit anal, a little bit more intuitive, and wanting to look and just play with things, I guess. But he played a really good part. Liked his job.
Yeah, I to some degree I think. But here's the rain seasons where so this is actually L.A. and I'm like, I had to look it up because I looked it up. Where did they film this? It was in L.A. and then they talked about, obviously they talked about the rain. But here's the darkness that you see. Excellent character actor. Glad to see him getting some good work in Hollywood. But yeah, so this is what we're talking about in terms of the darkness. I had a hard time believing it was L.A. It must have been. So this was released in '95, so they probably filmed it in '94, and we had some pretty wet winters a few years, right? I think I want to say there was a year where I think the Burbank Basin filled up. We had some pretty wet years back then, if I remember correctly. And the interesting thing is they didn't wait for it to clear. They said, no, we're going to go through, and they plowed through and got it done, which that's what they should be doing, right? I'm the budget guy, so I want, let's get it done, keep going, let's not let anything stop. But it did give it the dark look. So what'd you think of Morgan Freeman in the movie, Eric, and in general?
You know what? You can't go wrong with Morgan Freeman in any of his movies, I don't think. I think he's a great actor. I don't think he wavered from his usual acting style at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the best movies I like from him is Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. Did a great job.
Yeah, another dark movie. So Shawshank Redemption. I mean, I liked him in $1 Million Baby. He was just kind of a supporting actor role. Did Clint Eastwood, and then of course The Unforgiven. That's one of my favorite westerns is The Unforgiven, and he was in both of those. So, but yeah, he's got a long storied history, but he was good in this one, and I think they were trying to get these guys nominated for Oscars, but it didn't just work out. I forget who they were running up against that time, but here it is, their first meeting. They got a homicide. I forget which one it was. Let's see, what was the first homicide? It was the gluttony guy, right? This is the first one. And now he gets a new partner. I don't think they would do that normally. Give you the new part. The guy's going to be the new guy, and you're leaving in 6 days. I think they would probably do something a little more permanent. And the guy with 6 days to go would just be cleaning up his records. But he's going out on this murder scene, and this for me, even they walk into the house, right? And even in the house, it's dark, right? So how they film this is dark, and they find the guy who had overeaten, and you don't realize it. Go ahead.
No, I was looking at the slides there. That was Morgan Freeman in bed. But
yeah, he's going.
Yeah, Gluttony was the first guy.
Yeah, and I just, and then there's this big fat guy being to me that was unbelievable. I can't, the guy's forced to keep eating and keep eating. You would think there would be a point in time he passed out, but and then as you see these pictures as they roll the credits, they purposely made them look like those old crime pics, like LAPD old ones and New York old ones. Have you ever seen that where they do the vintage crime scene pics, and you'll see they'll display them on popular media now, and they purposely made it look like that. But they also are showing our murderer, who you don't ever know, John Doe, doing things like trimming the skin off his fingernails, our fingertips, You see that in those opening clips. So
Mhm.
they squeezed a lot of stuff in here. You don't realize it until later in the film that it was just as important. But when I believe he's the one where they went in there. No, that was probably, I getting them mixed up because one of them had the air fresheners on the ceiling too to keep it. That probably was that was the other one. That was another murder. But I don't know. I just thought it was unbelievable. Then we'll see him later, but you see the big fat guy on the autopsy table. He's freaking huge,
Mhm.
right? And eventually they figure out that it's a serial killer and he's following a path of the 7 deadly sins. And the first guy they find is gluttony, right? That's what it is. Yes, dark and stylish, but but was it a realistic movie? I don't think so. I mean, I've never seen anything like this, but that's what movies are supposed to do. They're supposed to shock you, I guess. And with Pop Culture Minefield, it's like we take inspiration from real life, but I can't think of anything that I've been through, and I doubt either one of you where this. So where does this come from in your imagination? I guess is right. The guy who wrote this story, because I could never come up with this. Right?
It was wild.
Yeah, it was start. What did your wife? I know you watch it. What'd she think of the movie?
The first probably couple of scenes where you went through the greed and the gluttony and the sloth, she didn't quite get it because I'm trying to explain the 7 deadly sins to her, and it's like we all know what they are. And for the most part, I tell her it's you look at the 7 deadly sins and it'll say it's a Christian thing. I'd say it's more of a Catholic thing because that's where she would have learned it. That's where I've heard it more from than on the Protestant side. But it's, and then there's actually 8 deadly sins, but Jimmy Buffett told you the last one. We'll get into that one later. But once she started figuring it out, she goes, "This is sick." And she said, "You're sick." for watching it.
Well, so I'm going to challenge you guys when we're done. Google the best crime movies or best cop movies, and you'll see that the 7, if you kind of like the best, unique ones, or when you change the title, this comes up in a lot of them. And the Library of Congress preserved this one, and they have culturally insignificant movies, and they preserve them. This was one of them. It was hard for me to believe, but so obviously they saw something in it, right? Whether it's just the movie making or the theme, I don't know. So, but you're Protestant, right, Danny? You're not Christian, Catholic?
I'm Protestant, yes, sir.
Yeah, I think this is from the 7 deadly sins is from the Old Testament. That's kind of it's Old Testament. So that really, Protestant, Catholic, it's from the Old Testament. But I think the Catholic Church in the Dark Ages tend to emphasize the darker part of the faith before the Enlightenment. I'm talking about this stuff, but the Enlightenment, during the Enlightenment phase, they looked at the world as that you had God-given rights and the importance of the individual. That was more kind of the Enlightenment and the New Testament, and that we're all sinners and you can be forgiven, whereas the Old Testament says we're all sinners and you're going to suffer forever, kind of thing. It was very dark.
Right.
If you look at some of the lessons from the Old Testament, which is where this comes from, right? The 7 deadly sins. I don't know, Eric, are you a person of faith, and did the 7 deadly sins remind you of your childhood and growing up and fire and brimstone church things, or are you agnostic?
Oh no, I'm a Christian. Yes, not as much as during my younger years, but it was interesting once I put it together. It was again, it just plays right into that really dark aspect of this movie, and how it all ties in. But I'm a man. I'm a Christian for sure. Yes.
Well, we do have serial killers who do go out there and say they kill for faith, right? We have
Right.
these cults that rise up, and I was in a discussion on on another show regarding David Koresh, and he would use the Bible to
Mhm.
as a cult guy, because they were like bashing the government on this, and I said, hey, let's keep in mind, David Gresh was not a good guy.
Right.
And he was up to some no good and justifying sleeping with people who are underage, but using the Bible to subvert people and convince people, right? He was the new Messiah, and they would reach back and they would look at all this stuff just to convince people. But so faith can be sometimes captive, can capture people. Exactly, like Charles Manson. Did Charles Manson use faith, or was it some kind of? I don't remember that his was more about faith. I definitely Koresh's was. I think the 7 Seals or something like that, which I can't remember from my. I went to Catholic schools for 12 years, but after a while you kind of tune all that stuff out because it's just the same stuff taught you over and over again, right? And you remember the ones you want to remember. You don't remember everything you don't remember. You don't remember things you don't want to remember. But let's roll with the next scene. This is actually the gluttony scene. So the first scene was Morgan Freeman. This is when they find our chubby guy that we already talked about. And this is I put in here the old versus young conflict, which we kind of touched on between detectives. And I have to. So both you guys were detectives, right? So there is always a little bit of hazing from the old guys to the new guys coming in. And maybe it was a little more sinister, 30 years ago, but now it's just more about fun, right? It's more about accepting you in and a little bit of hazing. But I think in this thing with Morgan Freeman versus Brad Pitt, it's just like Morgan's done. Yeah, I'm done. I don't want to play. I don't want to entertain your ambition. I've done my time. I'm out. And it's interesting because if you listen to what he's saying in the movie, he has, I don't want to say he has the same attitude as our killer, but he's down on the movie. He sees all the worst of the city and he wants out. You remember him saying that stuff?
Yeah.
He doesn't see hope. He sees, and his character sees the worst of the city. Maybe that's working homicide all those years, and he wants out. He wants to leave. He wants to go somewhere new that doesn't have all this stuff. And then the young guy still has hope. Hey, I'm new in my career. He still has hope. He still has energy. And so I guess you could say Freeman's a little burned out. And we still got the young guy he's charging. He's still making his career. He doesn't even have kids yet. That's the difference between young and old, right? Any thoughts on that, Danny?
That's pretty much right on. I have no independent recollection about hazing.
About hazing? Never made the new guy get the coffee or pick up the donuts or anything like that?
No independent recollection, sir. I'll take the fifth.
Statute of limitations have passed, right? You can so. Well, I certainly remember some of that stuff, but God, I remember the first day I was in patrol. It happened in patrol too. All the old guys just shut off their radio so that I can handle all the calls. You're on day shift. He can handle them, and they go to breakfast. And so there's a certain amount of hazing does happen, right?
When I transferred to Compton, I left Avalon as a detective in Avalon for 8 years. So when I left Avalon, I get to Compton. One of their rules there was when the station operator pages anyone from DB, you've got a phone call. Anyone from DB is a new guy. Now here I am, the new guy at Compton, who has more experience than 90% of the people at Compton Station.
Right.
And I got to take all these stupid gong show calls from the public wanting to know about their case. Give me a break. Although, like the second or third phone call I got turned out to be an unassigned kidnap, home invasion, robbery with nobody in custody. But so I grabbed that case and ended up solving it. So that I made my bones real quick. Because when you transfer from one detective unit to another one, that's one thing you got to do. You got to make your bones with the boys. So
yeah, that's the funny thing about it. I mean, you go to a new place and suddenly you're a blank slate. You got to prove yourself all over again. You may have, it was always interesting to me if like a deputy worked a particular place, maybe an area where they think this is a cool place to work, and he works there, and then he goes and works somewhere else. He promotes a sergeant. He comes back, and he's got to prove himself all over again.
Yep.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, what?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I was working patrol when we had just had the postage stamps for vests. We had 6-shooters, and we didn't even have radios. And I got to prove myself to you guys. I got pepper spray, got a wraparound vest, got a 9mm on your hip, and you got a computer in the car. I started when we didn't have any of that, and I got to prove myself to you guys. Are you kidding me? But that's just the attitude when you're in a big department and there's multiple stations. They don't know you yet. Doesn't matter.
Because the turnover rate's so quick.
Right.
But it's funny because when you're the old guy in a new station and stuff, it's kind of fun because inevitably the system's going to go down. So you give the new guy you give the so-called younger guy the paper log and go, you fill it out, because they don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Well, I showed up at a place as a sergeant, and there was problems there with supervision, and it took about a 3 months for they said, okay, this guy knows what he's doing,
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I don't bounce. I liked patrol, so I spent most of my career in patrol. So if you sent me to a patrol station, I know how to do everything. I'm not worried about it, and I'm not worried about making friends either. When you're a supervisor, I never really worried about that. But then they go, oh, okay, this guy can handle a pursuit. He can handle. He's good, right? But it always bothered me, like, why do I got to prove myself to you? You guys have 5 years on. I got 20 on, and I got to prove myself to you. What do you think, Eric? A little bit of hazing. Now, this is just Morgan Freeman's character. He's just out. He's just done, right? That's part of it. But
I think you're right. He's at the end of his career, a week before he retires. It's not like it's a little bit of hazing, but he's like, I don't care. It's I got a week to mold you into something that the supervisors are going to be happy with, regardless of your 5 years experience in a homicide at another precinct. Just get the job done. You just have to let me, prove to me within those 5 days that you could actually do the job. And but yeah, and back to the hazing thing. Back in the day, I mean, I went to patrol in 1988. Hazing was not, the word wasn't around, but it was done. And to me, I think a little hazing goes a long ways. It makes you a stronger person, not a man, but a stronger person. And it gives you the ability to, or the intestinal fortitude to do the job, because, you don't turn out woke like a lot of people do nowadays, But I think hazing is a good thing in the right way. So
yeah, within context, right? You have to
exactly, as long as it's a teachable type of hazing, But I think, like you said, he was just done. He wanted to just finish the days off. He didn't want to pick up another case and just just be done with it. So, but yeah.
So okay, let's get to the scene. I mean, it's rolled through here, but this is the gluttony scene where the guy. Now, here's one of the reasons why I really didn't want to do this. I have so many memories from real life events that I don't want to remember anymore. And you know what I'm talking about. Death scenes that are now part of you, right? Just because you had to do what you had to do, right? And I mean, I could tell you there was, I was probably 10 years into it, right? Maybe I was a sergeant. And I realized, you know what, I don't want to go to these dead body calls. If I'm a sergeant, I don't have to, right? Unless there's a supervision issue, right? And so I said, and I get a call from the deputies, hey, Sarge, come see this. I go, well, what is it? And a guy put himself in a storage room, half the size of a standard bedroom, and put a shotgun under his chin and killed himself. And you can imagine what the room looked like, right? It was gruesome. And I look and I go, why the hell did you guys call me over? I don't need these images in my life anymore. This is your job now. I just need to make sure you do it, right? I don't need, well, come on, Sarge. It's, no. And so when I watch this movie, I think, God, now I'm stuck with this image of this fat guy leaning over a plate of SpaghettiOs and eating himself to death. And then on the morgue. Now, did you guys, when you guys went through the academy, did you have to go to the coroner's office?
No.
And so I remember going to the coroner's office, and there was this huge, really big fat gang member, right? And he was dead, of course, been shot. and they did the, cut the
Crayon.
and they pull the skin back, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't want to see that. And now I always remember those. And so when I was watching this movie and I saw that, I go, this is why you're stuck with these images from this movie. As your wife said, Danny, he's sick making you watch this, right? That's the thing about this movie, right?
Well, you know what I would, real quick, what I would do when I was a training officer at Carson is that on a Friday night, I would take my trainees to Harbor General, the trauma center, and make them watch them crack a chest open.
I was going to ask you, Eric, have you ever been to USC to watch him do that? Because
absolutely.
Yeah, USC, I've seen it. There used to be a hospital in Lamida's area called Bay Harbor. It was on.
Bay Harbor. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember. I watched a doctor there crack a chest, and it was like wild. That was the first time, and then I seen several up at USC.
I would make my trainees watch them. So I said, if you're going to throw up, you're going to throw up here. I don't need you throwing up at a scene.
Right.
If we go to a homicide or a shooting, whatever it is, I say, you get out of your system now. You need to see what reality is when you get back, when you go out on your own. So, yeah, I would do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's
See, the hard one. The hard one for me in the beginning was the first couple of times it was hard to see is putting in a chest tube.
Yep.
Oh.
And that was like, oh. And finally, about the third or fourth time, you start getting, okay, now I'm really interested in this because
when
you look at the medical.
When you got to the higher rank, did you like, okay, I don't need to go there. I don't need to see that. Did you?
No, I went.
Did you go in defense mode? Because I'd just say, okay, I'm going into defense mode. I mean, if I have to go, I got to go. Right? No problem.
Yeah.
But if I don't have to go, I don't need to be a looky-loo. I'm not going to go. Right? So
let the young kids do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go say, okay, you guys are doing good. Okay, bye.
Right. But as we talked about on other shows, Danny, you have those memories, and those memories are with you for the rest of your life. Right.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
but
this, it's almost like I'm getting post-traumatic stress watching this movie too. Right.
Yeah, there were some scenes that could trigger real easy.
Right.
So.
And I think that's what it's designed to do. The movie maker is designed to trigger your worst fears and bring back, but yeah, that's why this movie is so dark, I think, because of the themes. And most people don't, you think about it. I think we talked about this on another show, Danny. It's most people might deal with one or two things in their life that are triggering events for post-traumatic stress, whereas cops deal with 600 a year or something like that.
I'm thinking it was like 12 or the average person is 12 or 13 traumatic events in their lifetime. I mean, working LA Sheriff, New York PD, Chicago PD, LAPD, all the big departments, you could do that in a day in one shift. But typically it's about 12, 13 a month, and it goes up into the 600. It could be pushing 1,000.
Yeah, if you're from bigger and faster bigger agencies where and
it really doesn't matter whether you see a gruesome homicide in Skid Row in LA, or if you see a bus head on into a semi in rural America. It's still the same trauma.
Yeah.
So the rural cops they're not seeing as much, but they're seeing quite a bit.
But the movie maker captured that with this our gluttony guy, right? Those are visuals you're going to remember now for the rest of your life, thanks to me. Yeah, no,
I seeing his fat ankles tied up and his hands tied up.
Was it the barbed wire that he used?
Yeah, it looked like it's face down and the spaghetti, and then the wall with all the spaghetti sauce. Cans of spaghetti sauce. Yeah, that's something I'll never forget. Thank you.
I don't know how I feel about eating spaghetti anymore.
Yeah,
it's like I never want to see another.
Well, and he couldn't even give it good spaghetti. It's canned spaghetti, right?
Yeah,
it's SpaghettiOs, and not can you at least get the spaghetti that Mama makes so it's enjoyable going down?
Yeah.
But gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins, right? You're just overeat, you eat more than you need, and so that's what that's all about. But let's roll the scene with Elliot Gould. So this is I think Greed is this one, right, Danny? So, and this is where they realize that when they go to this scene and Brad Pitt's basically handling it on his own because Morgan Freeman doesn't go to this scene, but this one is interesting as well. And they're using other things. So this one is greed, but they also will use the killer sets it up so that like a pound of flesh, right? He has to give a pound of flesh because of his greed, right? And so you have these other sayings, I have to pay them a pound of flesh. I have to give them something really important to cut this deal, right? And so weaved in this movie making is also these terms, a pound of flesh. So he's got to pay something very important to maybe survive because he's greedy, and then of course it kills him. He bleeds out, right? There's a scale there, and he actually shows a pound of flesh. You have to cut out a pound of flesh, and he leaves. So he secures the lawyer. This is a criminal defense lawyer, very wealthy, and he secures him, ties his feet, ties one of his hands, and leaves one hand open with a knife so that he can count him. And that's what you see in this film. Also, I'm describing it, and I'm getting, but the visual, awful, right? But the thought of that happening also, who thinks of this kind of stuff, right? I mean, who actually thinks of this kind of stuff? But if you go back and you look at like the Old Testament, some of the biblical references to things, they're pretty bad too, right? That I mean, Abraham having to sacrifice his son, right? And some of the things that they did in the Old Testament to show piety or to seek forgiveness for their sins. There wasn't this, hey, just go to the confessional and tell them you're sorry and you won't do it again. And none of that. It was you had to, I mean, the whole the thing where you lay down and you whip yourself, right? I forget what they call that. When you flail yourself or you allow yourself for your sins. So the atonement was much more serious in the Old Testament, as listed in the Old Testament, and that's kind of the theme here, right, Danny?
Yeah, I was actually watching or reading something on Christianity and secularism in when Christianity first came out. First of all, the Romans, they would take new Christians and light them on fire alive and use them as street lamps. That's pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
A lot of the Christians do weird things in the name of Christ, and it's like, dude, you're way off from what you really should be doing. You shouldn't be doing that. But I googled what you asked.
Yeah.
Seven comes up in the top 5 of some of these Google searches as good cop movies.
Yeah, and so here it is. I've been doing my show for over 2 years, and I finally do the movie, right? I mean, I've done every Dirty Harry movie. I've did all the Bruce Willis Die Hard movies, which were a lot more funner to do. I mean, I've done a couple of foreign ones. I did the Guard with Brendan Gleeson in Ireland, and then Special Squad down in Brazil. But it took me a long time to get around to do this one, just because like I said, it's just dark. And but here we got the scene. His boss comes in and says, what are you going to do with yourself? This is what you're built to do. And this is kind of where he's saying, I'm just done. I'm done with this place. I need to get away from this place. And I think the homicide guys, because I used to have Danny R. Smith on the show all the time, and even though he's a writer now, he's a homicide guy forever. And I think that's the way they are, and I'm sure Morgan Freeman's going to be that way too. But he's of the attitude, like a lot of guys, I'm going to retire. I'm going to go 10 acres in Idaho, and I don't want to talk to anybody. I mean, there's guys that retire that's where they're at in their life, and it takes them a couple of years. And then they re-engage and recharge their batteries. But that's where he's at in his life, Eric, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's 100% because of his assignment. It's and Danny could attest to this. When your assignment is dealing with death on a daily basis. I mean, there's no clowns and sunshine and roses every day. It's dealing with death and having to make those notifications, and it grows on you. It's like, I need to get away from this, and I need to see humanity as it was meant to be seen, not the dark side of humanity. Yeah, absolutely. And I could see how, because he's kind of have this depressed persona about him, because of of what he deals with on a daily basis, you know. And unfortunately, I think a lot of folks that in our profession that retired don't get out of that. They don't know how to cope with reality and life after being a cop for 25, 30, 35, 40 years. So, yeah.
They stay on that hypervigilant roller coaster.
Yeah.
You're just going up and down. And one of the things that the research has shown over the years is you have a hypervigilant cliff. As a new cop, it might be like stepping off the little lip of your driveway. And then as time goes on, it could be the curve, and the cliff gets higher and higher. After 30 years, you're a long way up there on that cliff, and it's a hard fall. And if you don't, and in retirement, if you don't figure it out real quick, you're going to fall.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of people do, and it is shown also that the farther away you get from the job in retirement, you're lowering yourself on that cliff. But it's slow. It takes time, and I tell people in retirement, it doesn't go away. It's still there. And,
yeah.
A lot of research on it. A lot of people I've talked to, and it does not go away.
And that's where Morgan Freeman is at, right? And
right.
And the interesting thing about the scene that we just saw is, so he goes to the autopsy, and they find something in the guy's on I think it was in his mouth, and just linoleum or something like that, and he goes back to the scene, and he's looking for what's the source of that, and of course he finds that the refrigerator had to be moved, and it carves the scrapes, and those scrapings ended up on our victim. And then he sees behind it the word gluttony, and with a little note. So he realizes, okay, there's going to be more than one of these things. And when he eventually goes back to the office, and he compares notes with Brad Pitt and on Eli Gould's crime scene, where that guy was a victim, that word greed was prominent. And being somebody who reads, and it's interesting how Morgan Freeman, he goes to the library to help solve crime, right? He does research on this to understand it, so he can understand what the serial killer. And Brad Pitt is doing the more traditional kind of role of what police cops do to solve these crimes. Completely different. And that's where I get the impression that he's portrayed, his character is this intellectual type, right? That looks for the broader meaning, what's going on, versus just following the nuts and bolts of salt. Where does the evidence take me? And
I think he was trying to understand the psychology of the suspect by going in and looking up what are these 7 deadly sins, what are what do they evolve in, and everything like that. So he was just trying to figure out the psychological part of John Doe.
Which is important, because then that it allows you to be a little more predictive what's going to happen, right? Versus just following the evidence as it does happen, right? And so that there is an important piece of that. So all right, let's roll the next scene, and this one is now we do get introduced to Gwyneth Paltrow as Brad Pitt's wife, and they moved into the city, and it sounds like he was somewhere else. Maybe he was a detective in the suburbs doing more suburban stuff, another area, and then he moved into downtown LA, for lack of, because this is where it was filmed at, and it's busier there, and she doesn't like it. She doesn't like any of this stuff because she sees it as dark, but Brad Pitt sees it as opportunities for his chosen profession, but she sees it as a setback. But we'll get a little more. But this is I called this scene "Help Me," right? And this is when we're dealing with sloth, right? The next, I have to go through what are the 7 deadly sins. Let's see here.
So this is sloth.
I got gluttony and prostitution, fornication, greed, envy, wrath, sloth, and pride. Right? Those are the. Did I get 7? 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4.
Pride,
Yeah,
greed,
so-
wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, sloth.
Yeah, when I was looking it up, they have different different terms for, but they basically mean the same thing. So, but this is sloth, and this one, the visuals on this one is bad too, right? This is the guy that's on the bed, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, with all those air fresheners hanging from the ceiling.
Yes,
I'll never buy another one.
so at the crime scene, so our killer is leading. You know, he's leading him to each one of these scenes. So these fingerprints were found at Gould's place, and they're behind. They bring in his wife and said, "What's different in the office?" Which is pretty basic, right? That's basic grinding it out detective work, right? What's different here? And she recognized that the painting's upside down. That's what's different. And of course, they show her the pictures too, and she gets really upset. And I go, yeah, I would too. I think, you know, my loved one had to cut a piece of himself out of there just to survive, and of course, he's dead anyways. And then Morgan Freeman realizes there's something here. I don't know what it is. There's something here, and then eventually he's using his little fingerprint duster there, and he finds out that there's fingerprints up there, and the fingerprints are shaped into the word "help me," right? And then, of course, they take the fingerprints. They find out who it is. It's a 2-bit criminal, and they go to take him down, and that's where they find our next victim. Now, the interesting thing about this victim is he kept him alive for a year, injecting him with heroin because he's a dope dealer, right? And I think the idea of sloth and laziness is that this guy is not doing anything with his life. He's just lazy. He's sucking off of people. He's hurting people, dealing drugs. But as we get to the scene, and this is a pretty jarring scene when they do find the body or the person. I guess he's not a body yet. But he's been giving them for a year. He's been giving them narcotics, but he's also been giving them antibiotics so that he doesn't get. Did you catch that piece of this when they talked about that? He's giving him antibiotics so he doesn't get bed sores, and he's chained to this bed, and just gruesome, just
And
gruesome.
he ate his tongue.
What was that? And he ate his tongue. Yeah.
He ate his tongue.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Well, at the end of the scene is, well, did he say anything? Well, you know, if his mind wasn't mush, which it is, you know, he ate his tongue a long time ago. So no, I don't think he'll ever be saying anything. And but yeah, and just the visuals on this when they find this body and the explanation of what he went through to keep him alive for a year. He cut off his hand and obviously repaired it to the point where he wouldn't die, and then used those fingerprints to put the message. So the planning that goes into this. So he had. I don't know how long he's had these victims planned out. Probably there are a few of them he had them planned out for a while. As we get towards the end, there's no way you can see that that was impulsive towards the end, but well planned, right? This is what do they call him? An organized serial killer, Danny? That's what they do.
Yeah. This guy was and he'd probably had this planned out for, you know, probably 5-10 years. Just didn't know the victims until it got closer.
And then how he was going to do it, right?
Yeah.
He had that. That's the part that he was planning out.
You gotta go to a lot of car washes to get those air cleaners. So.
Those air fresheners, but that whole scene though was eerie when they finally. So here they're waiting for the fingerprints to come back. They're waiting to get information. Then this part I didn't understand. These guys are waiting all this time, and the boss Eric, they find out who it is, and they're running with a tactical team, and these guys are still asleep. This isn't real. I thought, okay, this is unrealistic. Here the boss comes in. We got him. We know who he is. We're gonna go get him, right? And there's no way that would happen in a real homicide investigation for the sheriff's department, LAPD. Well, unless there's the boss there who wants to take credit for everything. But they'd be the first ones notified, and they'd already be deciding how they're going to handle it, right? They wouldn't be the last ones just tagging along, right? What do you think, Eric? That part was unrealistic.
Oh yeah, I mean it like you said, the Hanley detectives are the primary point of contact, and based on their information and whatever else, they're the ones that set up contact the whether it be the SWAT guys, the gang guys, whoever's going to hit that location for a search warrant. They're the first point of contact. They're the organizers. It's like, come to my party, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how you're going to help me get the guy. So yeah, that was pretty unrealistic.
Yeah.
What I thought was, so you just missed it, and you said as they found out who he was, he said, "Oh, this guy's a Southern Baptist." Probably the last thing that I'd be talking about on homicide investigation, what his faith was, right, Danny? But even, and I think that just fits with the movie. I don't know if I can hear you, Danny. Are you talking? Okay, we lost you, Danny. Danny, we lost you. I think he's got to check out and prime back in there. Let's see here. Get to the private chat. Tell him. There you go. Give us a 1, 2, 3, Danny. Can you hear me? No. All right. Okay, let's see here. I think we got time. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Sloth. So, I mean, they did say that this guy was a drug dealer and a pederast, which means he had been previously arrested or was accused of sleeping with people underage, children, and so that's who he's targeted. So I don't know how our killer picks these guys out, but that's what he's doing. So what'd you think of? We haven't got into the scene yet because it's really a scary scene, but just following the pathway. Well, you were an investigator, so talk about evidence and following the path that's in front of you, the obvious evidence. I mean, you can have theories, but you really need to have a theory and then evidence to get you to where you need to go, right? Right, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I did not become an investigator until I got the hazmat. But I mean, even back in patrol, I would tend to sometimes, get the initial information from the victim, and if it was workable information, you follow that evidence, and you have to make sure the evidence is credible, make sure that your victim is credible, the witnesses are credible, and you go from there. That sets your path forward to the end result. But yeah, that scene was, like you said, it was pretty gruesome, pretty like the whole thing of this whole movie was extremely dark. Just the passageways, the environment of what's going on, how loud it was. I don't know if it was at a strip club or what it was, an underground type of community where they're directed by all these cops down to the basement area to where the victim was at. So,
well, I think one of the interesting things about Dana, we got you back.
I'm back.
Okay.
I can hear you again.
So question. So they snuck in there that he was a Southern Baptist, or sticking with the religious theme, and that really not the first thing I'm going to look at when I'm looking at a suspect, right? I mean, looking at his criminal history, which they have. He's a dope dealer, and he's arrested for sexual stuff against kids. And that's the other thing. Some of these guys are, they got maybe some it's okay to be a defense attorney, but when you're defending some really bad people, I think people takes a bad connotation, right? And that's what our killer is doing. He's deciding who's bad for what they do, and obviously it's easy to not like a guy who's a dope dealer and sleeping with children, right? For Sloth, but talk about the fact that they in the movie making they had to slide in his faith.
Yeah, I think that's part of exploiting the 7 deadly sins, is they're putting in, he is not, by faith, he's not supposed to be going to prostitutes and going to that kind of activity he's doing. He's supposed to be leading a straight life, and he didn't. But it's, I want to say about probably 15 years ago, there was a Southern Baptist convention in wherever they're at in the South, and at this one hotel, pornography was the number one thing that was, or the number one website that all the pastors went to when they were there, because they were there by themselves and doing this stuff. So.
Well, we're all sinner in the eyes of God. That's probably all they would say, right? And but they do stick with the religious theme, and the killer kind of, when we finally find out who he is and he talks about it, well, these are all bad people. They've all sinned. They're gluttony and sloth. They've violated the 7 deadly sins, and so this is just, I'm just doing what should happen, right? That's kind of what comes out. And obviously society takes a different view. We do punish this stuff, but we don't punish it the way our killer does. Hey, but we're at the halfway mark. I got to do the 7th inning stretch. Martine, are we ready for our commercial break? If you guys got to use the facilities, now is the time. And we got 2 minutes, and we'll be right back.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all: movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis, official scoops from Geekosity magazine, reviews, and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield, where they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all: movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis, official scoops from Geekosity magazine, reviews, and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield, where they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. We are reviewing the movie Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. And so for my sciatica, what I've done here is I've rigged up. I got those exercise bands, so I rigged up the exercise band on my right leg, and I just use one end on my left foot, so I can do a constant stretch. And it works out pretty good. I don't really have pain throughout the show, and I'm taking this thing on the plane with me, Eric. I'm going to try that. I think people are going to look at me weird, but you know what? If I can keep a constant stretch on that sciatica on my left leg, it's way better. It's way more. You know what I mean? So, and I rigged this up for my last show on Morning Coffee with the Chief, because this is a 2-hour show. So my other one's an hour, so I can struggle through it. But this is actually working pretty good, and so I'm going to have to take it on the plane with me. And I think the stewardess will all look at me like I'm crazy, but hey, it's rubber. It's not a bomb. There's no wires. It's okay. So
Do that or fly first class.
What was it? Do what? I'll fly first class. Well, yeah, we did book, so you got first class, and then what's the next one?
Economy
business
comfort.
class.
Yeah.
Comfort class. So you get a little more space, but yeah, I have to tell you, I'm probably gonna have to start finding first class if this continues. But I'm probably gonna get the shot, because they offered me that, and mine's a workman's comp thing, so I probably will do that, because this is getting irritating every morning. I have to deal with this. So I actually went on a 1.5-mile walk before the show just to loosen it up. So anyways, okay. So welcome back, folks. We're reviewing the movie Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. And let's get into probably what I think. There's a lot of disturbing scenes here, but I think when they find Sloth, they find the guy. This you jump out of your seats with this one, right? And so they've figured out who this guy is, and the SWAT team goes in, and it's interesting. So here you got the killers with the machine guns, and they see him and they don't go in the room or they don't go there very far. Okay, you know what I mean? It's like even they're like, give me a guy with a machine gun, not this, And you see this guy, and he's like he's alive. Well, you find out he's alive, but he's decaying right there in that bed. And the air fresheners are. I think when I was looking at a review, and I have to agree, this is almost like what's the Silence of the Lambs? Some of the visuals, right? Very dark, and that's the one where the killer had a pit, and he would throw the women in the pit and starve them, heavy women, and starve them so that their skin was loose, and then peel them. Very dark stuff, but okay, very dark stuff, but this is for me. So this is a visual I'll have for the rest of my life. Is this scene, right? And the fact that they look at him. He's clearly handcuffed, and they're pointing the guns at him. And this is it just shows the fear that this is not something they're used to. I mean, we've seen it all, right? But this is not something your average cop is ever going to see in their life. This is a once in a lifetime event, right? This was to me, this was shocking. Of course, there's Sloth. This was a shocking scene. What do you think, Danny?
Like I said, I'll never buy those air fresheners again. When they walked in there, and all they showed at the beginning of this scene is the air fresheners. I'm going, what the hell? And I'm trying to figure it out. And then I see the dude in the bed, and I go, okay, he's dead, and the air fresheners are doing the scene. But then you find out that he's alive, and he ate his tongue, and it's just, that's a visual you see in a movie that if you saw it in real life, you'd probably take a stress or a retirement for something.
Well, I definitely have to have a Jameson after this. And it's interesting. So they take the pictures, and he takes a progression of him when he first and just keeps taking pictures of him. And you find out later that he's been there for a year, and the landlord says, hey, he was great. He just paid his rent on time. I never had a problem. He was a perfect tenant, right? He's chained to the bed, and somebody's paying the bills, right? And I just and then they talk. Oh yeah,
but he did.
I don't know how they. Yeah, still right. You would think. Well, he was giving them antibiotics. Yeah, Sloth is always the one that stuck with me more than the ending. Yeah, I have to agree. What do you think, Eric?
You know what? When I saw this scene, it brought back flashbacks from 1989 when I was working patrol in Carson, and my trainee and I got a check to welfare call. And for people that don't know that is basically a relative has not seen a person or heard from a person in a while, and they ask you to go and make sure that they're okay. Well, this happened to be in a trailer park, and it was an elderly couple. They hadn't been heard from or seen in quite some time, but they could see that the TV was on inside. This was in the evening, so we get there, and sure enough, we look through the windows. The TV is on, but it's back in the day where there's no channel. It's just snow, white snow. And we could see the outline of a man reclined in a recliner and several dishes of food around him. We're like, Keene Police Science, like, I think he's dead. We have to make forcible entry to go in there, but we don't know. The fire department's got to pronounce him. So we come up with this plan, but we don't see any signs of his wife. And so we make forced entry into the house. We go in the door. I tell the guy behind me, you clear straight ahead. I'm peeling off to the right. And as soon as we kick the door and go in the house, we hear this voice yelling, "Who are you? Get out of my house." And talk about the fear that just you get of knowing that there's a dead body in the house, but there's somebody yelling at you in the house. And it turned out it was his wife who was in their bedroom, in their bed. We had waken her up, and she'd been living with her dead husband in this trailer for about a week. And long story short, after she gets interviewed at the hospital, she's like, yeah, I just thought he was sleeping in the recliner, so I kept him fed. I would bring him his plates of food and put him around on the table on the nightstand around him where he was watching TV. So this brought back some flashbacks of exactly what I experienced in that case. It was and he was in advanced stages of decomposition where, we all know what happens during that portion. It's very smelly, and certain things happen to your body. And it was brought back some gruesome memories for sure.
Yeah.
Didn't Gene Hackman's wife stay alive a couple of days after he died?
I think he did. Yeah.
I think it was the other way around. She died.
Something like that. Yeah.
She died of that. What's that virus that rodents? And then he had dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the way it was.
And he was wandering around the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually collapsed and passed away. Yeah, that's yeah. Obviously, he did, but yeah, maybe a little bit of the lady you're talking about. She probably had. I'm sure. How old were they, Eric? The 80s, 90s types, or
probably late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think I'd have transferred to courts or something after that. I've gotten out of control for a while.
Here's any way to communicate, and this is where the guy says, well, if his brain hadn't turned to mush, which it is,
yeah,
he chewed his tongue off a long time ago. Yeah, it's this, and it's funny that he asked the question, because you look at the guy, okay, this guy ain't he's gone. He's gone. Yeah. I have no idea what the long-term use of, I don't know what kind of, I think, were they using heroin? I can't remember what they were using on the guy, but yeah, that this was a shocking scene for me. But so was the sloth one. I'm sorry, gluttony. That one.
Yeah.
When they led with that one, it's like, oh my God. But it's interesting because this movie plays on everybody's. It plays on your fears. Now, these aren't normal situations anyone in, but it just creates a notion that there's scary stuff out there like this. And this isn't realistic, right, Danny? This is not something that you're going to, maybe you'll see this once in a century or once every 200. We have the killers that cut people up and put them, and that's gruesome too. Mm-hmm. But this is completely different, right?
Yeah, this isn't something your everyday homicide detective or even patrol cop's going to see. It's that 1 in a million shot nationwide type of thing. It's just bizarre.
And he's trying to make a statement with every of the victims.
Yeah.
I
think he's made a statement.
I think he got a point across. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wrote some notes down. The killer is showing the moral decay, right? I mean, just the decay of he's showing the moral decay of society where these behaviors have become acceptable, that we allow people to behave this way. I think that's it. In the past, the Old Testament times, the Dark Ages, this wasn't acceptable, and you were punished severely for this stuff, which is what the killer's doing, right? Mm-hmm. And in society now, these it's not that it's become acceptable; it's just that it's become tolerated, right? And because there's a lot of social norms, if somebody is really overweight and not productive other than eating, or somebody's engaged, we do have punishments for them, or even societal shunning. That stuff does happen, but it was different in the Middle Ages. You were punished much more severely for these alleged sins. And I think this plays into Somerset's. Somerset wants to leave the city, and is feeling the same. It kind of dovetails in what the killer, of course, is expressing it in a much different way. Somerset just wants to leave. Duh, But so this is kind of the big theme, and this is also the point where, Gwyneth Paltrow reaches out to them, to the partner. She recognizes that Somerset, Morgan Freeman's character, is probably a good influence, and she wants to bridge this gap between these two partners, her husband and Somerset, and she starts reaching out to to get them to make a connection by inviting him. It was interesting. She calls up, I want to talk to your partner. He accepts and then hangs up, and Brad Pitt doesn't know what's going on. And then Summer says, well, I'm coming over to dinner. And he's like, what? So good for her. I like her, she's a beautiful lady, but she really plays the character well here. Her character development is really subtle. I just have to be the beautiful, loving wife who wants all things good, right? And even as she supports her husband, who's doing things or he's engaged in a profession that isn't all things good, and he's deeply in this investigation that's despicable. But I don't know, what'd you think of Gwyneth Paltrow in the movie, Danny?
She is the typical middle or upper middle class white suburbanite that all she wanted to do was take care of her husband and do what you said.
And have kids and have a family.
She wanted the house with 2 kids and a white picket fence, and hubby goes to work every day and comes home, and then they go off on the weekends to their cottage in the Poconos.
Right.
That's what she wanted. That's not what she got.
But she comes off as generally a good person. I mean, just her interaction with inviting Somerset over and trying to bridge this divide shows that her motives are pure, which is what makes her the target. Eventually, makes her a target, right? Her motives are pure. She's a good person, and that's whatever the dream everybody eventually wants, right? This is seen as the ideal, I guess, right, in American society.
Yeah, that's the American dream.
That's the American dream. But what'd you think of Gwyneth Paltrow in the movie, Eric? She had an interesting thing because she had to present a certain character, but her way of developing that is very subtle, right?
Yeah, very subtle, very short appearance for her, unfortunately. But she was kind of, like you said, trying to bridge the gap between Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, and she just wants there to be peace. And it was very interesting how Morgan Freeman is such a cool, calm, and collected, and then you got Brad Pitt, who's 100 miles an hour, and he's the young buck, and Morgan's the old guy, and she's trying to bring them together to coexist. And she does it the right way of what better way of making peace than sharing a meal, And like Danny said, all they want to do is live the American dream, but they didn't get the white picket fence. They got the apartment with a subway above them. And
gotta have that L train.
Yeah.
So it tells you they're not really, although they're filming in LA, it's supposed to be somewhere else, right? Because we don't have that. We don't have that kind of transit system in LA. But it's interesting. So she gets them, she invites them over, right? And they interact. I mean, I didn't do this scene. And then after that, he's had whatever, I forget what Brad is drinking, but I think Somerset's drinking whiskey, right? Or maybe he's drinking wine. But over a couple of drinks, they begin to get to understand each other, and they decide to work together, which is, I think, one of the things, we've seen the cop buddy movies. They never quite get there, but they do develop a respect for each other, I believe, and a feelings, meaning they like each other, right?
Right.
They like each other, and they get past the initial drama of Somerset. Hey, you're not experienced, shut up, but they get to the point where they like each other, and probably that I think I like that part of the movie, but also that's the setup for. It's interesting, yeah, great movie, Seven. It's interesting how Gwyneth and then Brad Pitt now become targets. That's still coming up though, how they become targets.
Mm-hmm.
But let's roll with John Doe, and I'll talk about how they actually find out who John Doe is. And it's this interesting thing, because so Somerset actually has a connection who the FBI is allegedly monitoring what people are reading. And then if you, for a few bucks, he manages to get that connection to tell him that the person who are reading things like Dante's Inferno or The Merchant of Venice and some of these other things where they're dealing with the 7 deadly sins, who's reading that kind of stuff? Because that isn't stuff that you read every day. I mean, lit majors might read that. It's I studied political science, so some of the stuff dovetails into politics, the Western society, and obviously Enlightenment and that kind of stuff. But not everybody reads that kind of stuff. And he was aware of a surveillance program where you can actually check who read what. And I don't know if any of this is true. I have to believe that maybe some of it's true. And hey, hello, Gambit, how you doing? And this is how they get there, right? They go to John Doe's apartment. I would think more than just a few people are reading that in that area, but that's just my opinion. And then John Doe sees them there, and he takes a shot at them. That surprised me in the movie, in that, why wouldn't he just leave, right? Why does he? But he takes a shot at him, and this is the big chase scene in which Brad Pitt is chasing him. Now, I would have been in traction after doing this kind of a chase scene. I think we all would have, right? That's why God made helicopters and supporting units, contain the area. And of course, and then your partner is Somerset, who's doing the best he can to keep up, but he's not going to be able to keep up with them. The whole Seven Sins part gave the movie a whole extra dimension. Yeah, it did. Yes, thank you, Sander. But this is, so you had some information on this scene in real life, Eric. You want to share the audience what happened to Brad Pitt in this scene?
Oh, okay. So I did a little research last night, because on the scene during the chase, halfway through the chase, you see Brad Pitt kind of nursing his, I believe it was his right arm. And then when they get back to the apartment, it's already in a sling. I'm like, okay, so that was really weird. So I Googled it. And during the filming of the movie, during that chase scene, Brad Pitt, when they come to that truck in the alleyway, he punches his fist actually goes through the windshield and severely injures Brad Pitt to the point where he has to have surgery. So they had to pause the filming of the movie, and they were contemplating canceling the film, and the directors and the producers said, no, let's just write it in. So that's why he's all bandaged up, because he had to have surgery, and I'm assuming he had major lacerations or whatever. So that's why he's in a sleeve and all bandaged up, is because he righteously got hurt during the filming of that scene. So, and I can see how, like you said,
right.
That's what they make stunt doubles for.
Yeah, I know. I was telling them beforehand, if I was an action star, I would say bring in the stunt double, for longevity purpose. But a lot of these guys, like Tom Cruise and other people, they feel like they need to do their own stunts. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but it's kind of like when I was doing search and rescue. Hey, Sarge, you want to be the victim? We'll pick you off the hill with the helicopter. No, that's okay. I don't think I need to do that, Hey, and
I've done that a couple times.
Fun. I'm not surprised, but it's kind of like, okay, so I've chased guys with guns down dark alleys. I don't need to jump out of airplanes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to do what you got to do, but I don't need to volunteer for this stuff. Mm-hmm. And but that's just a different perspective, right? So these guys are actors; they're not really doing anything dangerous with their lives, so they decide to do their own stunt work. And he was young at this time, so but. Like I said, if I was the action star, I'd call him the stunt double. Yeah. And, but what on this scene though, I've gotten to the point where I've done so many cop movies that you have to appreciate the chase scene. And I thought the director did a really good job in this chase scene. One, he maintained the dark visuals, and you had the rain helped. I think the 7-Ups, the movie The 7-Up, that was a car scene. Obviously, the French Connection with Gene Hackman. He was actually chasing a train, right? But that excellent chase scene there, and I think Coogan's Bluff, where Clint Eastwood is chasing somebody on foot and then on a horse. I like a good chase scene, and I think Danny, they did a pretty good job in this chase scene. What do you think?
I do too. That was kind of cool.
They kept you engaged, and they maintained the dark scenes and the foreboding with the scene, and the music added in there. I just think it was.
I'd have never made it down the first staircase. Matter of fact, I just stopped when we got to the staircase. I go, hell no, I'm not chasing this guy. But you're right. When they do movies not from LA, or with the theme of not from LA, you do have these real cool staircase scenes and running around, and then different elevators going, and it's just wild. The different hallways go to different sections, and so that's what they portrayed here. But like I said, I would have been like Morgan Freeman. I didn't. Well, actually, he did do the staircases. I wouldn't have. I just said nope. Sorry.
Well, and people have to understand, in LA, we don't have a ton of places that have these external stair. What do they call those? The external stair things. Fire escapes.
Fire escapes. Yeah.
We don't have a ton of those buildings, right?
I think that was something out of Hill Street Blues there. So.
Right. I think maybe Broadway Street, they might have some of those older buildings, and downtown LA, they might have some of those older buildings, but you don't find those at that many places in LA, because a lot of, we've had earthquakes, so older buildings have been knocked down or they've been retrofitted, and new codes require internal fire escapes, not these external things. So, but I just, the whole dark visualization and this whole pursuit. What do you think of the pursuit scene, Eric?
Like this, and like Danny, like you said, it was very well made. It was, I don't think they skipped a beat as far as continuity of it. And like I said, every aspect of it, the rain, the dark scenes, everything was played out very well. And it's up there with one of the good ones. So, yeah.
So when you heard me say that this was actually accepted, I figured it would, like, the Library of Congress is one of a film that needs to be preserved in the Library of Congress. Does that, now that we've, we're more than halfway through the movie, does that surprise you now?
No.
No? Yeah.
Not really.
No, because it was the director should have got a Grammy for this, or an Academy Award for this, excuse me, because it's the directing style in it. Just kind of really cool, because it's dark. It's just, and he fits all them little dark pieces together, and because I'm assuming that some of these rain shots, even though they were supposedly at different times, they were probably all done in the same day or the same 2 days because of the rain.
Yeah, I think they said they filmed it within a short period of time and got it done. I was surprised that I forget. I did look at the cost. It was surprisingly more expensive than I.
320 some odd million.
Yeah, so here we go. SE7EN received one nomination at the 68th Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Yeah, and I would agree with that. So they got a nomination, and Walker was nominated for the Best Original Screenplay at the British Academy Film Awards, and at the MTV Awards, SE7EN received 3 awards: Best Movie, Best Best Desirable Man. Well, that's a throwaway, and Best Villain. Now I have to agree, the villain one's pretty good. He played, Spacey, as we learn, he plays a really good villain in this movie, and I remember him from The Usual Suspects, where he played Kaiser Soze. He played a good villain in that movie too. But let's see, it's they tried to re-release it to get these guys, either Pitt or Freeman or both, nominated for an Academy Award, and that just didn't generate the buzz for that, which surprises me, because I think, when you talk about the Academy, it's all the people that make movies. So it's all the guys behind the scenes. It's the music guy, it's the art director guy, it's all those folks. It isn't just the actors. It's everybody involved in the movie. But I don't know what their competition was.
Well, I do. In 1995, they were going up against Forrest Gump,
Okay.
Pulp Fiction, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and The Quiz Show, and The Shawshank Redemption.
Wow.
That's tough competition right there.
Yeah, those are all good movies. Yeah, I remember The Quiz Show.
I think Morgan Freeman did a better job in Shawshank Redemption than this one, and then it would be real close, but
yeah,
I mean, real close. But he was outstanding in Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah. And of course, Forrest Gump. I mean, it's tough competition. Even Pulp Fiction, which is another dark movie, So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so it isn't just it may be a great movie, but your competition is that year. If they made it 1 year earlier, 1 year later, then it would have won an Academy Award. But it's still an excellent film, and I just think it was a really good chase scene. Like I said, I've been doing this for over 2 years now, cop movies, and this one keeps you enthralled. And at the end of it, our bad guy has the ability, is in the position where he could kill Brad Pitt, but he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. And he eventually calls them up and tells them how impressed he is that they found out where he's at. Because the guy's a little narcissistic as well. Wow, I'm impressed. You guys actually found me. Like, you guys are all a bunch of dunderheads. Nobody's going to find me till I finish my game. And you don't know it now, but this is when he's switched gears. He's decided on who his other victims are going to be, right? And we find that out later.
I think at that point he figured out who his anger victim would be.
Yeah, right. Because right. Yeah, well, Brad Pitt, everybody's been involved in the pursuit, right? I don't want to say it gets personal, but you just think, I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to get this. You get your, I don't want to say like a pit bull, but you're latched on. You're going to catch him, right?
Tunnel vision.
Yeah, you get tunnel vision. I mean, I remember chasing this guy down Melrose who had robbed a bank, and I thought there was a backup unit behind me, but it ended up being CSOs who were putting it out, right? So I'm thinking, I'm finding myself chasing this guy, and I'm catching him. I'm thinking, oh shit, this guy's. I'm faster than this guy. He was a young black kid, but he was a smoker, right? So he couldn't get. And I'm thinking, oh God, I'm by myself. But I'm not going to let him get away. I know I can catch him. And fortunately, he just simulated a firearm. But you get into it, and you're focused. And this was before the policies changed, where you don't split partners and you don't pursue people by yourself. But yeah, we've all been there where I'm going to get this guy. I can catch this guy. I'm gaining on him, and you don't let him go, right? You've got to stay in there. So that's how I felt about Brad Pitt chasing this guy. And it was, like I said, it was a good foot chase scene, and they did it really well. But you were in a foot chase before. Danny, did you ever catch a guy on a foot chase?
There's only one time did I not catch a guy.
Oh, there you go. I should have said, did anyone get away from you?
But when I worked in Philly, I got several people in the foot pursuit.
As I got older, like I said, I liked working in the field, right? So I was still in the field, and this guy goes over the fence, and I'm like, no way, I can't do that. Where's the gate? And I find the gate, and I go around it. Fortunately, we had done the smart stuff. The containment was already set, so he just ran into some other guys, and we caught him, which is the smartest way to go. That's why I like the contain to capture kind of thing versus foot pursuit. It's just way more safer. Again, the movie broke conventions in what was more commonplace in the 1990s. Yeah, it seems like our audience really liked this movie too. But like I said, it's really dark. It took me a long time to want to do this one. Let's roll with the let's go with the list. So I think we have this. I gotta remember what the scene's about now. I watched the movie a few days ago, then I reached out to you guys, and then I got busy doing other stuff. But here's our guy. Gotta get him rhyming to see something said about the music. Oh, this was another dark one. This is so I think the deadly sin is sex or prostitution, fornication, and this was really dark too.
See, so I got this scene mixed up with the other one when I.
This was so it's he's in the red light district basically. Of course, they got red lights on, right? And our bad guy basically kidnaps two people, the prostitute and her John, and he's created a device that is basically acts as his penis, but it's a knife. And he forces the John to have sex with the prostitute with this thing, of course, killing her. And I mean, they don't show the visuals of the body really, but they do show the device, which is shocking, right? And the reaction of the John. So here's this guy. He just probably steps out every now and then, and uses the services of prostitute. But now he's used as the instrument to kill the prostitute with this device that our bad guy John Doe has made. But I thought the actor in this, here's our actor who played the John. He did a fantastic job of just the shock of doing what he had to do and what happened to him. I mean, I can't imagine what somebody would go through being forced to kill somebody with this knife that's been strapped onto him to act as his penis. And just really ugly thoughts, right? Just, I mean, what do you think, Danny? This is just.
I'm kind of thinking that there were parts of the scene that the actor didn't know was going to happen. He knew his lines. That was about it. He probably didn't know a lot of these things were going to happen. He probably didn't know that, John Doe was going to put a gun in the back of his head as he's doing the acting scene. And sometimes actors are hidden from, or things are hidden from actors, so they do get that initial shock and shock and awe type of thing. So I'm kind of thinking that he may, or maybe had just a little idea of what was going to happen, because that was, to me, it seemed more like it was a real shock. That it was a real surprise to him that he had a gun to his back of his head instead of just someone acting like it, because that would be a hard thing to act like it, to be that scared.
Yeah, I thought he did a fantastic job, but I think as an actor, but just the visuals that come out of his explanation of what he was forced to do, just a cringe, right? And here's the brothel owner, I guess. Well, people come and go, and I worked in an area where there was a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, West Hollywood, and there was some pretty deviant sexual stuff going on, right? And for some folks, it's what helps them get their kicks, right? There was a lot of prostitution going on. But this, so the target is fornication, prostitution. That's the seventh deadly sin. And he actually got two victims here. He got obviously the prostitute, but he also got this John here, because it is, the sins of the flesh were taken much more seriously in the Old Testament, in the Dark Ages. And now we forgive people for those. It's still serious, but it's not, it's just, in the New Testament and the more enlightened age of how we deal with sinners, it's just viewed differently. But when you look at but what do you think of this scene, Eric, and our actor here, and just the whole picture that gets framed with this scene in terms of how this murder happened?
I think, first of all, I think the actor did, like you said, a really good job. I think talking about, think about how he studied the scene and how he was going to play this out. I mean, I think was really good. But yeah, I think by them just using the visual of the device and letting you come up with your own conclusions as to how that actually happened, and the way he described it was, it painted the perfect picture without having the actual visual of the body and how gruesome it actually was. So yeah, it was, they could have used a lot more, but they chose not to, because of how gruesome it probably would have shocked the senses, as we say, showing the victim there laying, versus just having him give you the visual description of it.
Yes, Andrew, you're right. It's lust. This was the lust, but it's a seven deadly sin of lust. But and it's, so this is a switch up from the gluttony guy and greed, where they actually, you see the visuals, and sloth, and this time they just show the instrument, and they show the pain caused the actor who had to actually commit the act, I guess. But right, so they leave it to your imagination. But after they give you the visuals of gluttony and sloth and greed, it's the word. So this is great filmmaking, right? You can conjure up the worst vision because you've already been prepped with these other terrible visions, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I don't know, Dan, what'd you think? So this was a switch up from showing the gruesome act to you putting it together in your own mind with this when they go to lust, right?
I kind of enjoyed it that way, because you didn't really want to see the gruesome scene.
No.
And it's just like one of those moments, and you go, what is that? And it did leave it to your imagination, which was perfect, because I think that pretty well would have probably been a pretty gross and disgusting and bloody scene.
If I was working this homicide, there'd be a lot of Jameson nights, I'd have to tell you, just to get to sleep, probably, And in the beginning of the movie, metrodomes, you see, I was standing on his nightstand. He had a metrodome. Those are supposed to be how people sleep, right? And
I don't know how I could tick drive me nuts.
Well, it's supposed to, you're thinking something other than your thoughts, right? So It's the same concept of counting sheep, right? Or one of the tricks to do if your brain is busy is you count backwards by threes, so it forces you. So the metronome, you're thinking of something else other than the visuals that are in your brain from work. That's what I think the metronome's supposed to do, right? And it helps you to it helps you to get those thoughts out of your head and helps you fall asleep. That's what I believe it was. I didn't look it up, but that's what I'm assuming based upon other methods to go to sleep. Sloth was pretty fed up with the doctors saying that if his brain wasn't mush, he wouldn't be able to speak because he ate his tongue. Yeah, that we went over that scene, and yeah, so we got the visuals from this one because we created them in our own brain, but still Sloth, I think, has to take number one in terms of.
Yeah. Well, basically, I think his scenes are getting more gruesome and more gruesome as it goes along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sloth, you actually get a little bit of visual, then some to your imagination. Then you get into this scene. This is very little visual and a whole bunch of like.
Yeah, it's inferred.
It's just stimulating the darkness of your own brain case.
Well, and then the loudness and the darkness is consistent with every well, except for Gould's office. That was a little more light, but there's a lot of darkness in a lot of these death scenes. Certainly with Gluttony and Sloth, it's the same kind of thing. Although it's the pounding music, as Eric talked about, that you see in this one. And like I said, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. A lot of this stuff all went together. It'd be coke, sex, and the music, and overstimulating all the senses. It's just part of the indulgence, right? Part of the lust, and I think a certain amount of indulgence. Well, let's look at the next scene, detectives, because this is where he actually comes in, and he surrenders himself, right? And you see that here he is. You finally see who John Doe is, and it's Kevin Spacey. And he yells up to the detectives as they're going up the stairs. So he walks in and he yells at them, and of course they immediately turn around, pull their guns, and nobody knows what's going on. But he holds up in his hands, and you see that his fingerprints have been, or his fingers have been sliced open, right? So this is why he avoids any fingerprints. And of course, Brad Pitt knows exactly who he is. I don't think he ever really got a good look at him at the chase, but he recognizes this is our bad guy. He's finding us, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and it was interesting because none of the guys pull their guns right away, and then they all do on the floor. Yeah, that would be typical. We tell them to get on the floor, get down, but he turns himself in. This is how he gets caught because they really don't know who he is yet. Right. And this is part of his plan. And I think Somerset knows he's got something planned here. He's not done yet. He hasn't done all the 7 deadly sins. He's not done yet, or there's more out there that we haven't found, and he's just playing us. And so now he's kind of controlling the game, which is what a lot of these serial killers like to do. BTK, you remember BTK? I don't know if you got. He's the guy. I think he was in Kansas.
We did a spinoff on a movie that last year or something like that. It was a spinoff of the BTK killer.
Yeah, Clove Hitch killer, right? Yeah. And so he's very organized. He's in control. He's deciding how this stuff is going to happen, and he's not going to get caught unless he wants to get caught. Although BTK foolishly was narcissistic in real life, he had to respond to some articles put in the paper about him, and then he went back to doing what he wanted. But they eventually caught him because he made some critical mistakes. But he was the person who was a controlled killer, and he was in charge, and he liked the game. And Kevin Spacey, I think, likes the game, particularly since these guys found him. He's thinking they're not on my level intellectually, but I'm gonna play along with these guys. I'm gonna let them think they're in charge. And but he really is guiding all this, right, Danny?
Yeah, he's in charge, and he's actually now he's already inside Brad Pitt's head.
Yes,
and he's gonna live in Brad Pitt's head for a very long time. But,
yes.
Morgan Freeman Somerset, he like you said, he sees something else going on, and so he's cautiously playing along to see where what road we're going to go down here and what's going to happen.
But even he doesn't know.
Yeah, and he's, like I said, he's cautiously playing along to find out what's going to happen. The
Well,
part
he-
I didn't, well, we'll get to this part in a few minutes.
Yeah, he gets Somerset tries to get detached and figure this out. But what do you think, Eric? Our bad guy turns himself in, but he is the controlled serial killer, and he is. You get the sense that he is actually still in charge here. He's calling the shots, even though he's in the custody of the police.
He had every move very calculated. I mean, and we don't know this until the very end, that all the blood on him on his hands are Gwyneth Paltrow's blood. You know,
Yeah.
he had just come back from killing Gwyneth Paltrow, and so that's all part of the plan, his plan. And even when they come back with the DNA or the samples, like, yeah, got blood from him, but then there's blood from Jane or John Doe that we don't know, and unbeknownst to Brad or you know, that's his wife's blood, that
Yep.
DNA. So and like a lot of serial killers or infamous killers, they're driving that narrative. They are playing those detectives, whether those detectives, you know, pick up on it or not. And if they do, they allow him to continue on for so long till he makes that crucial mistake. Who knows? But I think on this one, they didn't pick up on it. They're like, okay, he's gonna, especially when he says there's 2 more victims, unbeknownst to anybody, one of them was Gwyneth, and he called himself a victim because he ends up getting killed. Or does he call Brad Pitt a victim because now he's a victim of his wife's death?
Yeah.
So it was all very calculated. Very, very good scene.
And you know, so I think I unless I miss something, I don't see. I mean, we'll get to the point where Gwyneth Paltrow, I don't see her as any of the violators of any of these 7 deadly sins, right? You
Right.
know, and
No.
she's just a pure victim.
Right.
But he has to do this to get there. Let's see. You have seen the Netflix series Mindhunter. Yeah, I actually have seen that, about the guys who set up the behavioral science. Yeah, and one of the first ones they talked to was Herbie. I can't remember his name now. The big guy. There was a 6'8" serial killer who killed a bunch of co-eds up in the Central Coast.
Hey, and I stand corrected that when he said there's 2 more victims, I forgot Gwyneth Paltrow was pregnant, so it's Gwyneth and
Yes.
the child. So those are the last 2 victims. He doesn't see himself as a victim.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and you figure that out towards the end. And
Yeah.
here's the interesting thing is with the lawyer here, and he's already got the lawyer's already hired, right? And he's saying, well, he'll let you find the 2 bodies, but you have to agree to this plea bargain. It's got to be done this way.
Uh-huh.
And Morgan Freeman says, hey, it basically says this guy's in charge. He knows what he's doing. And of course, they're rightfully concerned. They don't know what this is going to mean. This guy is, you know, but he's not a big guy. So, I mean, if they got him properly handcuffed and waist chained, he can't be a threat to them. But given what they've already seen this guy can do, they're apprehensive, right,
Mhm.
Danny? Yeah, they're
It
apprehensive about it.
says here that Tracy Mills is not one of the 7 deadly sin victims, because the last 2 victims are. We'll see that when it gets there, but we
Yeah.
I've
It's
probably
sad.
already heard that it's going to be Kevin Spacey's one,
Well, right, and so
because he admits to it.
let me see if I got some notes here. You have to get hit with a sledgehammer, right? So it's you have to get hit with a sledgehammer to wake people up. This is a comment from Kevin Spacey. So I have to do these really bad things to wake people up that our society is in moral decay. To get their attention, people will barely be able to comprehend. So you have to do the outrageous to get their attention, to say that the moral decay is we're all living, and I need to do this just to get everybody's attention that this is happening and we're not really paying attention to it. So yeah, this is his thinking. So obviously he's a whack job, but not he's not so crazy that he doesn't know what he's doing, right? So he would give, well, in California we don't kill anybody anymore. We just put them on death row and do appeal after appeal after appeal until they die of old age. But this is a death penalty kind of guy if he was captured in any other state, right? But let's go. I labeled the scene the box, for lack of a better word. But let's roll this last scene. It's kind of a long scene, so he's going to allegedly drive them to the location of the body, right? And so they got a helicopter. They did a pretty good job of making it dramatic. That they got a helicopter following them. They're going down the dirt road. He's telling them where to go, and he's telling them they're getting close as they're driving down the road, and they're having conversations in the car as they roll there, right? And of course, Somerset's just kind of paying attention, asking questions in a relaxed fashion, where Brad Pitt is, you're a killer, you're this. He's emotional about it, right? And this is a pretty good setup for what's going to happen here. And there's a lot of really good scenes in this movie, but this has got to be, this is the one where you don't see it coming, and it's shocking. And this is why I didn't want to do the movie, right? So they're thinking they're going to find a body there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, let's walk this way. And they walk off the roadway. And as they're walking off the roadway, allegedly looking for a body, they see a delivery truck coming, and it's coming pretty fast. He's supposed to deliver something right at 7 o'clock at the area that they're at as the sun is going down. And Somerset sees the van, and he goes to confront the driver, where Brad Pitt stays with Kevin Spacey, John Doe. And Somerset, of course, stops the van and talks to the guy, gets the package, and opens it, and he immediately understands. Somerset immediately understands what's going on here. He immediately understands that this is about the last two deadly sins. What are they on this one, Danny? Is it pride and envy, right?
It's going to be envy and anger.
Anger, right. So, the two last people to be killed for envy and anger aren't the two. We find out as Somerset comes back that is Brad Pitt's wife, Gwyneth Paltrow's head is in the box. This is the shocking part of this whole thing, right? And he's played them all. John Doe has played them all. Here he is. I want to know what's in the box. What are you talking about? And John Doe knows this is coming, right? And he talks about how he wanted to have what Brad Pitt had. He envied what he had. He had his beautiful wife and this beautiful future, something he didn't have. Another great movie is Citizen X, about investigating. Oh yeah, that guy was, he was a terrible serial killer. But so so he's playing this out. He's got two more deadly sins to go. He is guilty of envy. This is John Doe. He attempts to have relationships with Gwyneth Paltrow, Brad Pitt's wife, and when that doesn't work out, he kills her, right, and chops her head off, puts it in the box, and has it delivered. And so he knows he's going to be that Brad Pitt, based upon emotion, will kill him. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm an overly emotional guy, but I think I might take this shot myself, right? Kill somebody I love, and all right, I might have to give up my profession, but there's no way they're putting me in prison for it. Right? I might. This is a freebie, and I'm okay with that, right? And so he figures out what's going on. Somerset is running back because he knows he's got to stop this from happening, and he's got to stop. He really liked Gwyneth Paltrow as well, but he's got to stop from happening because he likes Brad Pitt too, and he wants to disrupt this. He doesn't want John Doe to win, right, Danny?
That's the thing, and he even said it. If you do this, then he's going to win, and because at this point, John Doe is so far in.
We lost.
He said, "Lost me."
We're having problems with it again, Danny.
Uh-oh.
Well, Eric, as Danny gets ready here, what do you think? Would you take the shot? I would take the shot. I mean,
yeah. I mean, what else you get to live for? As far as that was his whole life right there, and especially when he finds out that she was pregnant, it's like, what else do I have?
And so. he's just true scum.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. He's the bottom. You got me back now.
Yeah, I got you back.
Okay. Yeah, he's just. I mean, he's lower than scum.
Bottom feeder.
He's even lower than that. He's the guy at the end of the sewage plant.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and when he tortures Brad Pitt one more time. Oh, you didn't know.
Yeah.
You didn't know
Yeah.
she was pregnant with your baby.
He didn't tell you.
She didn't tell you
Yeah.
yet. And because I guess she was saying, "You can't kill me. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant." And you know, I can't imagine. That's another one. They don't show what happened to her, but you can imagine.
Mhm.
And you can imagine the fear that she was in as a victim. And then this guy's just got to twist the knife. He's got to twist the knife. Oh yeah, yeah. It didn't work out, and I cut her head off. Oh, well, you didn't know she was pregnant. She didn't tell you. And that's just a drive the knife deeper into Brad Pitt here. So I don't know. I would take the shot, Danny. What do you think? You got you got a freebie.
That pushed him over the edge, and in a court of law, a jury of my peers, I would be found innocent.
Yeah, and heck, you probably get a disability pension too.
Oh yeah, hell yeah,
with an award. Yeah, it's
temporary insanity. Yeah,
temporary insanity. And this guy can't work ever again. Look what he went through, and it was interesting. They said earlier in the film, hey, it's not unusual what information you get when you bribe.
Hey, guys, I have a counterpoint.
Okay,
maybe he could be going to jail because, after all, he's a Christian. So they're in conflict. Oh, do we let him go, or we jail him for being a Christian?
I don't know. I'm trying to put myself in the position of Brad Pitt's character here. I probably would shoot him too. And if you look at his face there, Brad Pitt's an excellent actor, and you can see him. He cringes in pain, and then he points the gun. He cringes in pain again, and this is where he's saying, "Don't do it. Don't do it. Give me the gun." And I think Somerset already knows he's going to do it. And I would. I mean, you can't come away watching this film and not have an opinion on what you would do, right?
Yeah. Well, Brad Pitt did pretty well after this movie and everything, because then he married Jennifer Aniston a couple years later.
Well, then he married somebody else too.
Jolie.
And that one turned ugly too. And
Labor of the Month.
Yeah.
So we're down to the last couple of minutes, and there is one other deadly sin, the eighth deadly sin.
Oh, and, what is that?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Oh, okay. If you're a sailor and a Jimmy Buffett fan, that is one of the verses.
Oh, okay, all right. So we're not going to find that in the Old Testament. That's kind of a New Testament add-on, right?
That's a Jimmy Buffett add-on. Yeah.
So okay. So you guys, question. So this is a good film. This is one worthy of preservation, right? Although I think, 2,000 years from now, when the aliens come down to Earth and look at all our destruction, and they go through the Library of Congress and they find this film, they're going to go, "What? They preserve this? Why?" So, I don't, it's got like they're digging up old warrior graves now, and they find certain things in the grave, and they go, "What does this mean?" Well, what did they say? But it's worthy of keeping. But it says something about our society, right, Danny?
It definitely says something about our society, because I could imagine that some of these things were probably taken out of things that were true life scenarios that were kind of exaggerated on top of that, just to make it more bizarre. But it's a pretty sick society, pretty dark society that we live in.
I'll have to look up who wrote this and what else he's written, if it's just as dark, because this. But I'm glad I did it, and I appreciate you guys joining me on the show here, Morning Coffee with the Chief, and I'll be in touch for future shows. I hope you had a good time with this one, Eric. I've only had it a couple of times, but you like doing it?
Yeah, this was fun. It was a good one. Like I said, this is the second dark movie you've assigned us, but yeah, it was a good one. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, usually I pick Danny Coon for these things, and he was getting the complex. I finally brought him in on something that was a little less dark. I can't remember what movie it was, but we did the movie Lovely Bones, which was
Lovely Bones was a good movie.
That was a good movie, and a little bit of Paranorma in there, but it was a good movie. And then we did, we just said it, the other one we did with the serial killer. But I mean, it's interesting.
Three Billboards, that was a good one too.
Which one? Which one?
Three Billboards.
Oh, the Three Billboards. Yeah. That was an interesting one because there's a lot of and the thing about this movie and a lot of movies is a lot of the cop dramas, good cop dramas, it's the interaction between the characters that make the movie. Nowadays, cop movies, they got explosions and big shootouts, but it's really the interaction between the characters, because that's what police work is, right? It's getting to talk to people, interacting with them. And let's see, Read by Nature, Stephen Ray's character says that the Russians only test for a couple of blood types, while the FBI for dozens. Yeah, that you talk about that, the serial killer case in Russia. They got some weird ones out there. But hey, thank you for joining me on Morning Coffee with the Chief. You guys stick around for a quick debrief. Martine, we are at the end of the show, and you can take it away.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Thank you.